So let's create this little mini watermelon journal today. I used the Not Too Shabby Box of the Month kit to create this journal. The bow is extra. I just found this bow in my stash and it was perfect for this, so I added it. I also have a video showing you how I made these charms, and I will link to that below. And also in the right hand corner, I will add it there. I will also have a flip through video of this journal that you can see, and I'll provide those links as well. So for this little mini album, mini journal, I'll call it many things throughout this video, but it's like a little scrapbook. You want to start out by choosing which papers, and I'm going to use a little bit of papers from the It's a Fresh Summer as well as Watermelon Summer. So I'm going to mix those in, and I'm going to use an assortment of those. And so I'm not going to use all of the different designs, but I'm going to use a lot of them, and I'll show you those as we go along. So then you want to cut your papers down to 4 by 6. So I'm just cutting them down 4 inches tall, and I just leave them the length that they are, that is 6 inches. So once we have all of those cut down, then you're going to want to round your corners using, I used the crocodile. You don't have to round your corners, you can leave them squared off, but I am rounding mine. So if you're following along with me, you may want to round your corners. That's just optional. So I also cut a piece of chipboard down to 4 by 6, and then I rounded the corners on it as well. So once we have all of our papers cut down, then it's time to just glue it up. This is going to be a very quick album. So I'm just going to add glue to my chipboard, and I'm just going to use some art glitter glue for this. You could use double-sided tape. That might make it even quicker. I think that either one will hold just as good as the other. I am going to have to clean my nozzle. I think it seems to be a little clogged. So for my cover, I want the little pink with X's. So I'm just going to add that. And I'm not going to go through each and every page or each and everything until we decorate it. Now I will show you how to decorate each page. Some will be simple, and then some will be just a little bit more decoration. But you do want to make sure, since you've cut these down, that you line them up correctly. And once we have them lined up, we'll just press it down. And then I have a little bit of glue oozing out, so I'm just going to use a rag that I have here. I'm just going to wipe it off. And then I'm just going to turn it over and do the back side. And so the back side of this one is going to be the watermelon. And make sure I've got that correctly. The turquoise background watermelon. That's the only thing I know to call it. And I'm just going to add the glue this time to the paper, but you can add it to the chipboard or the paper. It doesn't really matter. Either one will work. I'm making sure that my edges are lined up before I press it down. That way I am certain to get everything of the chipboard covered and no chipboard showing. Just got a few minutes to work with. I need to slide that one down. It was a little too far down. So there we go. And then I'm just pressing it down as well. So I did make the front and back cover exactly the same, but the inside of them are not the same, but they are the same on the outside. But I'm going to decorate the front cover up a lot. I don't know what I'll do to the back cover yet. I'm making this with you. I did not make a prototype because I don't have so much of this paper, and so this is one of those papers you want to really save and not use up and waste. So I'm trying to not waste any paper. So also, talking about wasting paper, don't forget to hold on to all the strips that we cut off of those pages, because we're going to use those to help decorate up our journal, or our mini album. So now we have all of our pages, and what you want to do is just lay your pages out so that you have them where when they're facing each other, lined up, that you think they look good and matches. All this paper pretty much matches. I had certain background prints that I wanted with certain prints, so that's what I've done. And so I've just gone through, and here are the ones that I am using for my journal, or for my mini album. And there we go. So right now, that's already a good little chunky mini album before we even start decorating it. So today I'm going to be using my Cinch to bind my scrapbook mini album. So I always like to cut a piece of scrap paper to do that. But if you don't have a cinch, I want to tell you some other ways that you can bind yours. You can punch holes and tie it with ribbon, or you can get these little clips from, these little rings from Walmart or office supply stores, and they just snap closed and you can just attach them. And these are great if you think you want to add more pages later, then you can continue to add pages with this. So now with the cinch, the cinch has 12 little buttons here, and if you have the mini cinch, it's going to be different. But this is just the regular cinch. And so I want to decide where I'm going to punch my hole. So I have my guide pushed all the way in, and I'm just going to put my paper, and this is just my scrap paper so that I don't mess up my journal cover. And then I have to decide which pegs to pull. So I don't even think I'm going to have to do it, but I'm going to pull peg number 8 just in case, because I don't want it to punch into my page. And I'm just going to see. And once I have it set up, then I will just punch all of my pages. So then I just take a look at it to make sure that I like how it's lined up. You know, is it pretty even from the top and bottom? And I think that is. I think that that's pretty good. Looks like it's almost exactly the same. I can measure it here to kind of see. Let's see here. It looks like it's just almost a half, but not quite. So I think that'll work perfect. So now I'm just going to pull out my pages, and I got to make sure they're in the right order. So I will take a look at it one more time before I punch them to make sure I have everything in the order that I wanted them. Which it doesn't matter until you bind them, and since we've already clipped the corners, we do know that the binding does go on this end. So we really can't mess up now. So let's just take and punch our cover, and I'm going to leave number 8 pulled out. So the cover is going to be a little harder to punch because it is 2 pieces of good thick cardstock, and then it is also the chipboard in between. So that's going to be a little harder. The pages will not be as hard to punch. And just be sure you're punching your square end and not the end that you clip the corners. And just make sure everything's pushed up against the guide here when you're doing it. So I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to punch all of my pages the same, and then we will put this together. So now that I have my pages ready, all of them have been punched and my cover's been punched, I have my wire binding here. I don't know if you call these coils or just wire binding, but it's the wire binding. So I'm going to take my back cover, and the inside of my back cover is going to go down towards the table, and the part that's going to be on the outside is facing me. So then I'm going to take my front cover and I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to have the outside pointing down and the inside facing up. So then I'm just going to add my pages in the order that I had them, that I decided I wanted them to be. And you can put your pages in any order that you want. I just thought this was a fun way to do them. Okay, so then I'm just going to take it off of the coils here. And I do need to just clip it, so I have them on the rings here. I like to clip it after I have them on, and then I just take the next one over and I just clip it right through the middle. There we go. So now we're just going to bind it together. And I do want to make sure if you're using a cinch, make sure you have yours on the right size. Mine's 1 inch. And this seems like very large coils for this journal, but once we start adding the embellishments, it's going to thicken up. So now we just need to fix our covers. We're just going to flip them around here. And there we have our journal. So we have, make sure I have everything in the right order now. I think it's all right. Everything seems to be right side up. So now it's time to start decorating our journal. And the great thing about binding with this, it's not permanent. If I decide that I needed to add something, I can always take this binding off, and you can reuse them. You can, if you spread it open right. But I also buy a huge box of these at a time off of Amazon, so I'll never use all the coils that I have. So I don't worry about it once I put it together if I need to take it apart. So for the cover, I did trim down the heart watermelon page, and I trimmed it down to be about a 1/4 inch or so smaller than the rest of the cover. I just wanted it to be able to be centered on the cover, and then I'm just going to layer some of the ephemera from the kit. And so I did not keep any of the ephemera separate. I am just using them from both packs. So I can't actually tell you which pack. You'll just have to dig through your packs, and if you're following along and creating this with me, just dig through your packs, just spread them out. And that's what I did, just spread all the packs out and pick pieces that I thought that I wanted to use on the cover and on the pages. So for the cover here, I am going to be gluing all the pieces together, and then once I have them glued together, I will just add foam tape to the back and attach it to the center of the cover. I did decide to pop up the other sheet onto the cover as well. So for this page, I've cut down some white cardstock, a piece of decorative paper from the kit. I've also stamped some images, and I have took and punched a scallop circle out of one of the strips that was left over from where we cut the paper down. So like I said, save that paper because we're going to use it for all the pages. So for the decorative paper for my little frame, I have cut it down to 3 by 5. And then I'm just going to angle it across the paper. So I'm not cutting actual frames, I'm just cutting squares or rectangles of paper, and then I'm just going to frame out my white paper. And the white paper is where the pictures are going to go. So the white cardstock was cut to 3 by 4.5. So then I'm just going to pop up the scallop circle, and I am going to be adding the stamped image to it. And if you notice, when I pop it up, I only add tape to the bottom half. That way I can still slide my photo in. And then I've used a stamped sentiment from the kit, and I've just punched it out with a 1-inch circle. And then I'm just going to add the ephemera pieces to it. Everything that I add, I make sure that I'm adding it so that you can still slide the photos in. So you want to be sure, if you're following along, only add glue to the bottom of these ephemera pieces so that you can still get your photo in behind it. And then once you add your photo, if you want to glue these pieces to the photo, you could. So here I'm attaching the stamped images that I created. So what I did for these is I stamped them, I colored them with alcohol markers, and then I went back and I inked them really well with embossing ink, and then I just used clear embossing powder on them to get this glossy effect. Now it did take about 2 coats of the glossy powder to get the shiny effect that I wanted. And then I've just taken some of the strips left over from where we cut our pages down, and I've just cut those down into little banners. And then, well, I've actually, for this page, I've cut only 1 strip down for a banner, and then I'm using a piece of white cardstock to be added to the top of the banner. You'll see on other pages I'll use 2 strips. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. And so there's another sentiment from the ephemera pack that I'm just going to add to this little banner. Now when I attach the banner to the page, I am going to pop it up, and I'm only going to add the pop-up or the foam tape to one side of the banner so that you can still slide your photo underneath. And as you see, I don't line my banners up. I like things to be wonky, to be crooked. I don't like everything to be straight up and down. So you will see that I'm going to angle a lot of things in this journal. So if it drives you crazy not to have things straight, just make yours straight. Do whatever you like that looks good to your eye. For me, I like things to be leaning and not so straight. And so for the next page, I am going to just use another image that I have stamped, and I am going to make just like a little cluster to add to the page. And so I am combining stamped images with ephemera pieces. So the little popsicle is an ephemera piece, and then the stamped image is the little gnome. And I've also stamped out a sentiment from the kit. And so this page, I'm working on the second page at the moment, and this page is going to actually be a pocket page. So it's just going to be a page to hold photos in the pocket, or any memorabilia like tickets or anything that you may have if you're using this one for like a trip that you took or like some summer activities that you did. So I am just popping him up with a little foam tape onto the pocket because I really want this journal to have a lot of dimension in it. and then I'll just slide the sentiment under the little gnome. And what I've done is I've just cut a little slant in the cardstock that the sentiment was stamped on. And then I'll just add glue to 3 sides, the bottom and 2 sides of the piece, the little rectangle piece, and that will be our pocket. Now I did go ahead and use my corner punch and punch the edge that was going to be on the corner edge of the page. And there you can see it's a pocket. Now for the opposite page, I am just gluing down another piece of 3x5 decorative cardstock, and then a piece of white cardstock that measures 3 by 4.5. And once again, I'm just going to angle everything. I put the cardstock straight this time and the white paper at an angle, and I'm just mixing it up on each page. And then for this little ephemera piece from the kit, I did just add glue across the bottom only and left the top loose so you can slide a photo in. Just keep that in mind, because if you want to add photos later, you kind of want it to look like you put it all together at one time, and by leaving space for the photos to be slid in, you can do that. And then if you're afraid that your pieces are going to fall off, you can always add glue to them when you add your photo in. Now for this page, I have just taken a piece of white cardstock to create a flip up. And so I've cut this cardstock 6 1/4 by 5. So it's 5 wide by 6 1/4 tall. And then I just folded over about 3.5 inches or so that the top layer was shorter than the bottom layer. And then I'm just layering some decorative cardstock on it. I actually used for the front of it a strip that was left over from the opposite paper that I cut down. So the opposite page, when I trimmed that down, I just saved that strip and I'm using it for the top of the flap. And then underneath I cut another piece of cardstock just 1/4 inch smaller so that it's framed out with the white on the inside. So then I'm just going to add some images that I have stamped and colored with alcohol markers. And then for the opposite page, I'm taking another one of the strips that was left over from where we cut down the page, and I have trimmed it down to be the same height as the page, and I'm creating a little belly band with it. I'm also using some foam tape to add some dimension and to attach some images that I've stamped. So these were stamped and colored with alcohol markers, and then the sentiment was stamped and I punched it out with a scalloped punch. And then as you can see here, I'm just adding glue to the top and bottom to create a belly band and a place to tuck photos in. So here is the decorative cardstock that I cut down to fit on the inside, and then I'm also adding a little tab on the outside, and I just punched that from another strip that was left over from when I trimmed all the papers down. These images were created by stamping them and coloring them in using my alcohol markers. So for this page, I'm back with my white cardstock and my decorative paper that I've cut to 3 by 5 for the decorative paper and then 3 by 4.5 for the cardstock, white cardstock. I'm also going to be using one of the ephemera pieces, which is a banner, and then I've stamped and colored in the little watermelon slice. And so I'm going to be using the same measurements for the cardstock on the opposite page. So this spread is going to have 2 framed photo spots. So I'm going to make sure that I put the decorative paper on, the 3 by 5 decorative paper on straight. So I'm just making sure that it's going straight across the page. And then I'm going to angle my white cardstock, and I'm going to angle it so that they're opposite each other in their angle, as you can see here. So for the banner, it's a bit too wide, so I decided to cut the bows off to see if that will fit better on the page and not cover the photo as much. But the more I looked at it, I thought it was still a little bit too large, so I'm going to cut it down to just 3 of the little banners on there. Now, if you're following along, save the other banner. We're going to use it. We're not going to waste anything making this. So for the opposite page, this is a little gnome in the ephemera pack. I'm just adding him. I'm going to glue a little popsicle stick watermelon to him. And once again, I'm leaving room for my photos to be able to slide underneath there. You just have to keep this in mind throughout the journal. It's easy just to glue things down. And like I told you, hold on to that little banner because it fits perfectly on the next page. And I really love how this spread turned out. I've gone ahead and I cut down some white cardstock to 3 by 3, and then the decorative cardstock has been cut to 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And then I took some ephemera pieces and I added these to the edge of the squares. And I'm going to pop up 2 of the squares onto the page, and I'm putting them as far over as I think that will look good. And then I'm going to take the other 2 and slide underneath. So the popped up ones are more like pockets or tuck spots for your other photos. So once I had this one in, I realized I did not add any decoration to it, so I went back and just added one of the little tags from the ephemera kit. So once again, I have a piece of decorative cardstock that I've cut 3 by 5 that I'm adding to the center of my page. And then I have a piece of white cardstock that measures 3 by 4.5 that I will add on top of it. And once again, I'm going to angle it. And if this video is going too fast, because I know it is a very quick video, if you're trying to follow along and create this, you can always slow the speed down. It will make my voice kind of weird, so you'll probably want to mute it. So if you slow the video speed down to watch it, you can do that in your settings on YouTube. And if you decide to do that, you may want to turn the volume off. But you can also just pause the video as I'm creating the pages, and I try to take just a moment at the end of creating each page so that you can see what all is on the page. So you can always pause it and rewind if you're trying to follow along. So on the other page, I am adding a banner, but this time I glue it all down. So the picture is going to be smaller on this page. And I'm just combining some pieces here. It's ephemera pieces, and then I've stamped the sentiment, punched it with a small scallop, and then used a larger circle behind it of some of the strips left over from the kit. I'm just using everything that was left over from cutting down the pages. I'm making sure that I don't, like I said, I don't want to waste any of this. This is beautiful paper, and I just didn't want to waste it. And then we're on our last 2 pages, and I kept these very simple. I punched out a scallop circle, and then I punched out a larger circle to go behind it, and then I've just popped up these ephemera pieces to them. And once again, I'm leaving it so you can tuck a photo in. So I'm just going to glue the bottom corner of the circle. And for the other page, I've just popped up this other little ephemera piece, the tier tray, and I've left it so that you can slide a photo underneath it. This was really a fun journal to create, so I hope that you have enjoyed seeing how to create it. And if you have any questions, be sure to ask me below. I do have a video showing how I created these charms, and I will link that in the description. I also have a video showing a full flip through if you'd like to see the full flip through of it. And after I created the video, I didn't show that I added these little sequins here, and this is the sequence that came in the kit. And so what I did was just pick out the ones, the 3 that matched the color for my cover. And I did not add the bow in the videos, any of the videos, but this bow was just one from my stash that I had, and I just tied a little bow in it, and that's how I tied the charms on. Let me see if I can turn this down to show you, because I'm not sure that I ever showed that in my other videos. But I just took a large jump ring and I tied the bow inside that large jump ring to add my charms. Well, I'm hoping that I will have an upcoming video showing how I add photos to this one. It will be a while because I'm going to have to take some photos this summer, and then I'll be back with an update on this journal. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.